Ramona, and welcome to Ramona Interviews. And with me in the chair, she's back with us again, and we're going to have a great conversation because a lot in the economy has changed. Is Nancy Dube from Dube Consulting. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
You know, it is great to have you back again. You've got a lot of energy. You give a great service. So again, just remind my audience what it is that Dube Consulting can do for them.
Okay. Well, I build human connections, and I do this through human resources outsourcing. I work predominantly with small businesses. I write resumes and coach people that are in transition, and I provide some social media services along with teaching LinkedIn for Business.
What's happening with the economy, and what do you see?
Well, the unemployment rate is virtually staying steadfast. We're at 6.7% right now. We've varied between 6.6 and 6.8. So when you're comparing to last year, we're staying somewhat steady. However, there are certain parts of the economy that are growing and certain parts that aren't. Manufacturing has taken a significant hit, as we know. I have some statistics here from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the manufacturing sector. There were 7,200 jobs added in 2011 and 10,700 the following year. Manufacturing took a hit in revisions. Initially, gains were reported for 2012 and losses for the previous year. However, revisions knocked both years into the negative territory. Previous estimates said manufacturing jobs grew by 2,300 in 2011 and declined by 1,100 in 2012. But the numbers in the sectors lost 1,100 jobs in 2011 and 2,500 more in 2012.
So again, this is another shift from what we can produce to service?
Yes. And Worcester has always been a manufacturing community. So the number of job losses, we have people that are not being tracked any longer on the unemployment rolls because they've exhausted their claims and they still can't find work. So those folks are going into temporary employment, and they're working 3-month, 6-month, year gigs at various manufacturing companies. They're learning new skills, and they're just waiting for the economy to really boom, but it doesn't look like the manufacturing sector is going to do that. Certain avenues of it, the biotech field has increased, the science areas have increased, but
that's a big jump to take if you were doing something that was not related to that and then into that, because you know, we're a college town, and so isn't a lot of other places in New England. So you've got a fresh crop of young kids coming out that would probably be moving into those positions. In that, you know, because they're specific, I think is what I'm trying to say.
I understand what you're saying. I think the college kids are moving away from the manufacturing sector. They're looking at the computer industries, they're looking at legal, they're looking at finance.
How does what you do help with what we're talking about here with the changes in the economy and the changes in jobs, people shifting, going to grad school, you know, other than opening a business, of course, which we discussed a little bit.
Sure. So employers, small businesses specifically, want to hire a new employee, or they want to retain the employees that they have. And so they're doing more in-service training. I'm currently doing some in-service training for a client where I go in once a month for an hour and a half, and I'm teaching them maybe hiring and firing, performance appraisals, disciplinary actions. So we're coaching those managers so that they can be better managers and retain the staff that they have and hold them more accountable. So that's one of the things. In terms of hiring, I often do retain search, which means a client will hire me to help them find a senior level person. I mentioned a business office manager as being one of the people. I'm looking for a legal assistant right now for someone else. And so they contract with me, and I do all the advertising, all the sourcing, the phone screens, and the interviews, and then I weed down the pile so that instead of them having a couple hundred candidates to look through with the unemployment such as it is, they're looking through maybe 5 okay?
That makes life easier.
It sure does, and it saves them time so that they can be working on their business.
Could you just kind of quickly explain and then maybe give some tips to somebody who was looking to get hired?
Sure. So when you're looking to get hired, you oftentimes apply to a job that's on the internet, or you may see an ad, but nowadays everything is on Facebook, LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, one of the internet sources. So you're applying to that job and you're sending your resume and you're praying you're going to get an interview, and you hear nothing, okay? And you hear nothing and you're waiting and you think, how is this going to come to fruition? Well, the employer, on the other hand, is getting flooded with resumes. They're getting hundreds of resumes that are coming through the portal or into their emails if they're a small business and they're not using a piece of software to screen. So they've got to review each and every resume. They've got to get noticed. And so the resume piece of my business is where I help a candidate to get noticed and show them how to apply online. And then the employer piece is where I go back and I'm screening these resumes. I have a lot of experience. I've been doing this for 20 some odd years. I have a lot of experience screening resumes. I know what to look for. I'm matching that to the job description so that I know exactly what the employer needs and what the candidate brings to the table. Then I pick up the phone and I do phone screens. And I can weed out quite a few candidates with the phone screens. So a good tip is to follow up, whether it be with an email or you're calling the agency or you're calling the employer and just leaving a voicemail. They're typically not going to take your call. But if you can leave a voicemail and say, hey, I'm just following up on my resume. I wanted to see if you got it, if I'm being considered for the position. And it's at least putting that thought in there.
Is the cover letter as important as it used to be? Now I'm talking to years ago, I'm dating myself here, but years ago, we were always told, 20 years ago, the cover letter was your charm. Is it still true?
Well, when you're applying online, you're typically filling out an online application, and then you're attaching your resume and your cover letter. So the cover letter is not typically read as the first pass. Being a recruiter or a hiring manager, as I've been in the past, I read the resume. If the resume catches me, then I'll typically even print it out, and look at it on a piece of paper, and that's even rare. I don't always print them out. And then I'll go to the cover letter. If there's any typos or if there's any misspellings or if you're not showing what you're bringing to the company, what your worth is, your cover letter is worthless. There's 7 different kinds of cover letters.
Okay.
My favorite is a compare and contrast, where you help the employer to understand what skills you have that match the job description, and you compare and contrast your skills against the qualifications that they're looking for. That really makes it very easy for someone to screen you. So it's important, but not as important as it was before. We're not sending them out snail mail like we used to, although that's not a bad idea as a second follow-up, because now they're touching your resume a second time and you're putting your name in front of them a second time.
Tell us your website, how someone can get in contact with you, and then we'll wrap up and you can give us some last-minute things.
Sure. So my website is www.dubeconsulting.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter. And I welcome your comments, and I have a newsletter, so feel free to jump on my website and sign up for the newsletter, and I offer tips every month and
That's great.
Presentations that are coming up and services that are available.
Thank you so much for coming on. We enjoy having you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great tips.
I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me, Ramona.
Thanks, Nancy. I am Ramona, and you've been watching Ramona Interviews. Have a very prosperous week.